MP and member of the European Security Committee, and Conservative MP Sir Bill Cash. Very good to talk to you both. If I can start with you first, Mr Davies. I know you've campaigned for a second referendum, but it was made very clear, crystal clear to the electorate before the last one in 2016 by David Cameron, the then Prime Minister. He said it in a speech at Chatham House. He put it in the leaflet that went to every household in Britain, saying this is a one-off, it's irrevocable.
Yeah, well, people were promised they'd have more money, £350 million a week for the NHS. They were promised by David Cameron they'd be part of the single market, and we won't be, and of course we'll lose jobs because of that. We were promised we'd take control, and our rights and protections are in jeopardy. And people in Swansea and elsewhere are saying to me, this isn't what we voted for, and they want to say on the exit deal. People have voted in good faith to leave, but now they may have ordered a steak in a restaurant, ended up with a chewed up bit of bacon. They want the right to send it back, and if they're not happy with what they get, if it doesn't resemble their reasonable expectations, they want the right to send it back, and that's democracy. And now the two extremes of this debate, which is Blair and Farage, have come out calling for a referendum. People do deserve a referendum on the exit package, which is quite different from the principal referendum we had before.
OK, Sir Bill Cash, well, you heard it there. Mr Davies is too polite to say it. He's saying more or less the electorate was lied to, particularly about this 350 million quid for the NHS.
Well, that's not my line at all, as it happens, but I can only say this, that as regards the turnout, it was the biggest electoral vote in our political history. It was a significant majority. It was authorised by Act of Parliament. And in order to have another referendum, you'd have to have another Act of Parliament, and you'd also have to repeal the Article 50 Act, which has just been passed in Parliament by 499 votes and is going to go through the House of Commons next Wednesday or Thursday. So for practical purposes, we've got a completely 100% democratic decision that was taken both by Parliament and by the people, and there is absolutely no need for this second referendum at all. And by the way, I have to say that the idea of the Labour Party, or parts of it, and the Liberal Democrats and Nigel Farage being, as it were, in bed together is one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, but I just want to interject there before I go back to Mr Davies, because he'd make this point to you, because you haven't addressed it yourself. You're saying, well, no need for this referendum. Well, Mr Davies, and indeed some others are saying, some people who voted leave are saying, well, we didn't vote. We didn't know this was going to happen. And I refer to the NHS issue in particular and some of the ones that Mr Davies touched on.
Well, on the NHS issue, I think that is a specific question on which I personally didn't agree with the Vote Leave campaign, but that is secondary to the democratic question. This withdrawal bill actually repeals the 1972 Act, and that includes all the treaties and it includes all the laws that have been passed by the European Community since 1972.
I have to go back to Mr Davies, because you didn't quite answer my first question to you as well, which was about the sovereignty of the people. This issue was given to the people of the United Kingdom, and they decided decisively that they wanted to leave the European Union. Now, even if there were another referendum which went the way you want it to go, that wouldn't settle the issue, would it? It would be 1-1. You'd have to have a third one.
Well, no, as Keynes famously said, when the facts change, I change my mind. And at the moment, 51% of people want to remain, 41% want to leave, and the rest don't know. Half the people want a second referendum on the exit deal as opposed to in principle, and a third say no. So, I mean, we have, in Britain, our democracy consists of general elections normally, but we've had 3 in the last 7 years. I think on this momentous change, which will change countless generations' prospects in the future, people do deserve the final say. Now they've got the information in front of them, which is inflation, job losses, less money, less control, and trade tariffs, which they basically think is something that's served up that they weren't enabled to know beforehand. They've seen the truth. They don't like it. They should have the right to send it back.
Just one quick response to that, if I may. Frankly, I don't know where Geraint's getting his evidence from, but YouGov, 11th of December, quite clearly stated 52% want to get on with Brexit. Only 16% wanted a second referendum.
Well, surely you don't believe polls, Sir Bill, after the results of the referendum. I mean, all the polls showed Remain in the lead right up to the final hour.
Oh, well, wait a minute. We got the result that we wanted. I'm talking about 16% want a second referendum. I mean, that really is a huge difference.
Well, Survation, which is the most reliable indicator before the last election, is saying these numbers. But let's settle it once and for all. That's what Farage is saying. That's what Blair is saying. They're either side of, the extremes of this debate. Let's have some democracy. This is a momentous decision. Let's give people the chance to vote. Now they can see the jobs going, the prices rising, the promises being unfulfilled. They deserve that, and I believe the main political parties, both yours and mine, Bill, will come and eventually they're going to have to jump unless they're pushed towards having another vote on this.
No,
Last question. I just want to get a last thought into you, Sir Bill. What about a vote on the Brexit deal? Because a lot of people, I'm not sure if they include you on the Leave side, believe they might be being sold a pup. Huge payments are going to be continued to be made to the European Union.
Sorry, that's what I'm talking about. So we're clear on this. I'm not talking about a rerun of Bill's referendum. I'm talking about the Brexit deal. Let's be clear about that.
Well, you might vote against the Brexit deal, Sir Bill, if it's too generous in your estimation to the European Union.
Well, can I say this? The Withdrawal Act, the withdrawal bill is going through. The second thing I would say is that as far as the British democracy and accountability is concerned, we're returning sovereignty to Parliament, and in addition to that, we will then make our own laws based upon our decisions, based on general elections by the British people.
But
that's where it should be.
But wouldn't you like to vote? Let's just say the final deal ends up with a Norway-type vision. You'd like to vote against that, wouldn't you?
Oh, that is not on the offer. She's already said that is, no, it isn't, because she said that was not going to be. It was in the foreign speech, and it's been in subsequent speeches. That is not the way it's going.
Just let me put it to Geraint Davies. I'm sorry to hurry you both, gentlemen, but we are running out of time. But Geraint Davies, I mean, the other side of that, if you've got a kind of Norway-type deal, wouldn't you be better off settling for that than risking the fact that Leave might win by an even more substantial margin?
No, I believe in democracy. Obviously, Bill's a sort of Brexit fundamentalist. I'm a Democrat, but I think it's clearly and now and demonstrably not in the interest of Britain to go ahead. We need a proper vote on the Brexit deal. If the deal is rubbish and people are worse off and we're impoverished and our rights are taken away and all the rest of it, people should rightly vote against it. But if they still decide, despite all the evidence, to go ahead, that's up to them.
All right. Well, Nigel Farage certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons. Thank you both very much indeed.